All right, we are recording for Chapter 8, the penultimate chapter of Return of the Jedi. And this may end up being a long one because I've got lots of notes, but basically they're all good. I mean, this is such a well-written chapter, and I absolutely do believe it is better than the movie, than the movie's depiction. There aren't many differences. There are some that are... Well, I'll get to that. Okay. The first note I actually deleted because it does get answered later, which is just that, and I think this might be the case in the movie as well, but I kind of forgot because, okay, we've got the Rebel fleet doing its thing because they're now aware that the Death Star is fully operational. In fact, that's where it picks up, is being like, that ship just disappeared because the Death Star works. We've got Luke and his confrontation with Vader. So they don't start fighting just yet. That takes a little bit. Then they start fighting, all that. And that is part of what I think is so much better. The fleet battle's basically the same. We get a little bit more explanation. I'll get to that. But the Luke Vader fight is so much better in the book. And not just for like being in their heads, but there are actions that are different that really do make it a lot more interesting, a lot more entertaining. And then also we have the rebels being taken out of the bunkers, seeing that they are completely surrounded. And then the Ewoks stepping up, which there is a little bit of an issue I have there. Not too much. I don't remember. I think I did put it into my notes, though. But one thing there, and I'll talk about this later as well, the Ewoks are so much better in the book than in the movie. It's barely even a comparison, because in the movie, they always seemed kind of silly to me, and at times you had a more jovial soundtrack as well backing what they're doing there. In the book, they're borderline ferocious, okay? I mean, it's like they are vicious with how they're just constantly going at them. It's like it has a line in there. The stormtroopers, will kill one or two, and a dozen still come at them. It's like, no, the stormtroopers are losing this. It's quite different from the movie, and I do think that the book is better. All right, so let's get to this. So my first note that I deleted was Lando giving the order to engage the Star Destroyers with the cruisers. He does explain it, that's just later, and I think that is also how it goes in the movie. I don't quite remember. I'll try to pay attention to that when I watch it later. But I got rid of that because we do get the explanation. It is a little bit more detailed. But that note is a little bit later. So the first note that I do have here, then, that I did keep here, is the Emperor actually orders, if the shield comes down, destroy Endor. And the Death Star commander, Jar Jar, is like, we have some battalions down there. Are you sure? And he's like, yes. It's like, okay. And this does make sense for the Emperor. It's pure vengeance. It's just well, even if your friends, Luke, even if your friends have some success, I'm still going to wipe them out. They will not survive this. There might also be a little bit of justification from the Emperor, who is evil. Don't get me wrong. But that kind of justification of, if my battalions down there can't stop them from destroying the shield, if they fail, I don't want them anyway. You could have done that as well. But you know what? That is giving a little bit too much rationale to the Emperor. And him just being straight evil is fine. I think leaving it at that is actually fine. But it is I can understand doing that. I could understand going that way. But the Emperor is in some ways too emotional for this. This is one thing that definitely the book will always be able to do better than the movie, because you're able to be in their heads. But it'll come up later. But basically, there are times that just because the Emperor talks, he actually gets Luke to stop turning to the dark side. Like, if the Emperor shut his mouth, Luke would have fallen. But because he talks, he's actually snapping Luke back awake. So he's not just giving into the emotions, but Luke has to think about this and is recognizing who the Emperor is, that the Emperor's evil, and then it's one thing, because you're able to be in Luke's head. You can recognize that impact in the book, but in the movie you can't, because you're not in Luke's head. Okay. So yeah, as the Emperor's taunting him, it actually describes, because Luke is having a harder and harder time resisting the urge to kill him, the lightsaber actually starts twitching because he wants so badly to grab it and just go. But then finally, the Emperor taunts him one more time, and that triggers him. He pulls it, brings it down, and actually describes that Vader stops it an inch from the Emperor's head. And so the clash there, sending sparks and just illuminating the Emperor's grinning face, which is kind of a nice description there. And it is, I know in the movie you do get, the cross there and the Emperor smiling, but you don't get the immediacy of the danger to the Emperor in that shot. I mean, it's like that could have been feet away instead of, no, literally like right there. And also it is in the movie, he's well lit even without the lightsabers. In this, it's the lightsabers are illuminating his face. So, bit more intense there. But one thing occurred to me, and my question here actually got answered. Right? So, and it's one of those things that it is fun when you're reading a book and it's, you start coming up with a theory, coming up with a question, and then you do see it answered. I think it was like 2 or 3 pages later. Which is, why did Vader actually stop Luke from killing the Emperor? Because remember, Vader's motivation, that isn't always the priority, is he wants to rule the galaxy himself. He wants to depose the Emperor, he wants to kill the Emperor, and take over. So why would he stop Luke from killing the Emperor? Because that ultimately would serve his ends. And also, if Luke does that, then he would fall and turn evil, and so, yeah. Vader actually does answer it later, saying that, yeah, the problem is that right now, he could actually still go back to the Rebels. That he is not emotionally where the fall would be permanent. Which is interesting, because it's not been mentioned before. It's always been described as the fall being, once it happens, you're done. So Luke is the one who's defying that by saying Anakin can be redeemed. Vader can be redeemed. But even here, like, Vader himself is actually going back a bit, part of the reason I was also questioning the whole Vader stopping Luke from killing the Emperor was also, could that have been Vader, in fact, trying to protect Luke from the fall? Because it's like, so long as you don't kill him, you can still be redeemed. Whereas, no. It is actually, Vader is trying to continue to control Luke, because he's like, yeah, you could still go back to the Emperor, to the Rebels. Sorry, I almost said to the Emperor. But also, he's like, yeah, it's going to take both of us to turn you. So he still has value. I can't let you kill him yet. And even has a line in there that Vader feels that he must protect Luke from bad decisions and from good decisions made too early. And it's like, this works. This is a very good explanation there. Because it is a worthy question. Because Vader has a greater insight than I do as far as the fall. That Luke killing the Emperor doesn't guarantee that he will fall completely. So, that is an advantage Vader has. And so the question gets answered, and you see it is actually, no, he's at a higher level because of that knowledge, a higher level than me and my understanding. That's perfect. I'm good with that. Very happy with that. And also, it being later is fine, because at that moment, we didn't need to jump into Vader's head. So, at a later moment, when we are in Vader's head, getting the explanation, that's fine. All right. Okay, so yeah, the next note I have is about I already mentioned, the Ewoks are such better fighters in the book, bordering on ferocious. I do have one criticism, and that is there are times when it seems like they are way too prepared. I was like, they have a freaking catapult already to attack an ATST, and then they've got the logs, because the ATST turns and comes at it, and then the logs come in and smash it, or actually, it's not clear that it smashes this way, as you see in the movie. It could also be dropping down, but either way, it destroys the walker. And it's like, that's a lot of preparation. It's like, they build a I mean, that's a lot. That would take quite a while to construct. Especially because Ewoks, I can believe that they're very strong for their size, but they're still all kind of small. And they're doing all this while the stormtroopers are around as well. Like, before they've truly engaged in the battle. So, yeah, some of it I'm not too happy with. But there's other parts where it's like they dig pits and just hide and just cover over them. That I'm actually okay with, because in theory this battle is going on for half an hour. I could definitely see that the Ewoks could be well enough organized, and it's like these are their materials. They know how to work with them, and there's a lot of them. I could definitely see them digging those pits, and they wouldn't have to be all that deep, even like 2 feet deep. could be enough if a walker isn't expecting a sudden dip there to throw off its balance and fall over. That's perfectly fine. And then some other things like, okay, yes, them having spears, them having knives, them having the glider things, which I'm not sure I like the idea of the Ewoks being better at aviation than Leonardo da Vinci, but still, it's like this is not unreasonable that they would have those things because they knew they were going to a battle. It's just, did they construct? I don't remember now if it implied that they constructed the catapult there, but it's also that and getting some of the logs on vines to swing, that I'm unsure. Having the vines there to swing, that I'm perfectly good with. But yeah, so it's like, I guess we have to suspend our disbelief a bit too much. I know I've been doing it a lot, not suspending disbelief. But I think here we do just we are forced to do that. That how did they get all this stuff ready? I don't know, and that does bother me, but it is what it is. It's not too bad. It still is the Ewoks are prepared and they are ferocious. Okay. The next note I have is Lando giving the fuller explanation for charging the Star Destroyers with the cruisers. About basically it will confuse the Death Star's targeting, so they'll have a harder time destroying the cruisers. Akbar actually challenges this, saying, but we don't know how to engage a Star Destroyer. I'm saying, we are only cruisers after all. And Lando basically points out, yeah, but they won't know either. It's a new combat. So, you don't know how to engage them, but the Star Destroyers, they don't know how to defend against cruisers charging them like that either. And he even goes in, and this is more like in his head, that the Imperials will probably think that the Rebels know what they're doing. Which is not unreasonable, because, like, why would you ever, I was like, we're so much bigger, we're so much heavily armored, why would you ever charge at us like this, unless you know something? So, basically, and it does even say Lando's thinking, this is a bluff. And he doesn't like the idea of bluffing on the last hand, but it's also, what else you got? You gotta do it. So I do like the further explanation there. I still don't like how Lando still feels a little selfish, a little cynical here. I mean, him falling back to running the odds, that's fine, but that is still colored by him being selfish. Like, so often earlier in this book, he was described as being selfish. He's doing these things for his own reasons, not for the rebellion, not for the galaxy, none of that for himself. And so it's kind of tainted there. It's not that he's applying his ability to help these people. He's applying his ability at doing the odds because that's what lets him achieve his own goals. So there's that, but yeah. Again, that is what it is. So during the fight between Luke and Vader, and it's different in the movie, because in the movie, Luke actually, like, kicks Vader down the steps, and then Luke is standing up there. In the book, it's actually, he's been continuously pushing Vader back, and Vader stumbles, and actually then falls down the steps, because he, like, wasn't expecting them, puts a foot down, falls back. And Luke is now standing up there, and the thoughts going through his head are, I can kill him, and then I can take my place next to the Emperor. Say, I can do that. That's within my reach to do that. Then it's also, I can kill the Emperor and and I can have them both dead and rule the galaxy. So it's like, you definitely have Luke being tempted. Very much so, Luke being tempted. But this is one of those times where then the Emperor talks. And it's like, oh, wait, that's not what I should be doing. I mean, it's like one at a time. This happens, I think, twice. And it's like, it is funny, because it is basically, if the confrontation were purely Vader versus Luke, Luke very possibly would have fallen. But because of the Emperor there, and basically being overconfident, thinking that he can continuously taunt and goad Luke, that's going to push him over. I guess it may make sense because of the idea that evil believes that it is good and that it is desirable. And so he thinks that by continuously doing that, he is continuing to tempt Luke over. But in reality, Luke does still find evil repulsive. So when he is basically just in his own mind, thinking about this fight and his anger towards Vader, that's when he's being tempted. But the moment the Emperor talks, he's reminded of the evil. He's reminded of his repulsion of evil. And so it snaps him back. So it's kind of funny that. But it does make some sense. it still is. I wish it were explained, because what I just gave is a theory. It's not what's in the book. It's not even like, Luke having a thought cross his mind about the distaste he has for the Emperor's voice, even. Like, nothing like that to describe Luke's repulsion of the Emperor, to explain why he's constantly being snapped back to, oh wait, no, I shouldn't be doing this. Okay, so Vader is down there now, and we're going to get now the first time that Luke says, I will not fight you. Oh wait, no, sorry. Palpatine taunts Luke, that snaps him awake, so he's now no longer up there dominant, triumphant. No, he actually starts to lose focus and is like, wait, what am I thinking? Why was I thinking that? Vader takes advantage of this to lunge at Luke, partly because Vader's actually getting angry, because he's like, shit, I never thought he would be more powerful than me. I never considered the possibility that I couldn't defeat Luke. So he's actually getting angry now. He lunges at Luke, who wasn't completely prepared. This is when Luke jumps up to that gantry, which we do see in the movie. Jumps up there and they talk a little bit. Okay, and then this is when Luke first says, I will not fight you. Despite, being in this fight, he's like, okay, no, I'm not fighting you anymore. And this actually further angers Vader, because not only, because remember, he just realized Luke might be stronger than him, and now it's like, wait, you're not going to be fighting at your best? Maybe this wasn't part of the conversation when Luke was up on the gantry, but the gantry is either just before or just after this. But it makes Vader furious, because he wants to fight Luke at his best. He needs to know if he can actually defeat Luke or not. Which is very appropriate to have in there. It just is interesting, because it is being written in there. That's not going to be in the movie. Because it is a in somebody's head kind of thing. But Vader being angry, that's like, I don't know if I can beat him now. And now he's saying he's not going to fight me at his fullest. And he's like, I will still kill you, if that's what winning means. But he doesn't want to kill him if Luke isn't at his best. Okay, yeah, so then Luke is definitely up on the gantry. Vader throws his lightsaber, which it is described so much better in the book. Because, like, in the movie, because of how his cloak is over his shoulders, that kind of keeps Vader close in, and you just see him take the lightsaber and go, "Argh," like that, almost like, Frankenstein's monster. It's like, "Argh," as opposed to him actually throwing it, and then using the force for it to basically boomerang back to him, and he catches it. It's like, Vader is much more nimble in the books, I guess is one way to put it. In the movies, he seems more lumbering, exactly like Frankenstein's monster. Which may have been intentional, specifically for that reason, that he is kind of a Frankenstein monster. So he cuts the gantry, Luke falls, is now in darkness, where we get that very good scene in the movie of Vader continuing to goad Luke and taunt him. And Luke is standing there with, half his face is in light, half his face is in darkness. It's a blue light, but you get that to show that the turmoil. The book handles the scene quite differently. You definitely don't have that. And it is definitely better. So Luke is hiding. And Vader is out there, and he doesn't want to charge in because he doesn't know where Luke is, so it would be dangerous for him to do so. And this actually is a problem for Vader. Because it does describe he's basically feeling himself weakened now, because the dark side is aggression. And he's not being aggressive anymore. Because he's thinking about how to not die, not to charge in and die, because Luke could easily hit him then. Could surprise him, is basically lying in ambush. So he's actually weakening from that. It's like, that's actually very interesting. This idea that because the aggression has to cease, he isn't as strongly connected with. But okay. So then, and this is one of those, we're definitely doing better in the book. Luke is again, I will not fight you, and actually is like, here, take my lightsaber, and he takes it and he rolls it out there. So it ends up going halfway between him and Vader. Vader picks it up and clips it on his belt. So it's like, shit. So this is actually going to make Vader even more angry, because it's like, you're still refusing to fight me. But he still takes that, and he's hesitating a little bit to go in there, because he also knows he needs to get Luke angry to fight. So this is when he starts peering into his mind. And at first, he's just sensing Luke thinking about his friends on Endor. So he's goading him about that. But then he starts sensing something different because Luke's thoughts start turning towards Leia. And Luke is trying to hide this and even yells out no. Not a smart move, especially when you're trying to hide as well. But anyway. Vader still intrudes into his mind and pulls out Leia, and that Leia is Luke's sister, therefore is his daughter. And I'm pretty sure it is just like in the movie with the whole, maybe we can turn her if we can't turn you. Luke's reaction in the book is different. For one thing, I think what he yells out in the movie is Darth as he ignites the lightsaber and charges. In this is he yells out never, but it's also he pulls his lightsaber back from Vader's belt. And this is how ferocious he is now, how aggressive Luke is now. He ignites it in the air, which has not been described previously, as I recall. Is that he turns the lightsaber on in the air, so he catches it ignited and charges at Vader. So yeah, a lot more intense this battle is. Okay, so then you do have, and this is like Vader definitely being in an oh shit kind of moment, in that it's like, yeah, Luke is absolutely dominating him in every way. Just is able to physically push him back. There is no attack Vader is able to try that Luke doesn't parry, and just constantly hammering at him. And again, then in the movie, it seems that Vader is kind of lumbering. And I never really liked it, the whole, because Vader's like on his feet, and then he's suddenly like just down, holding on to the railing there with the lightsaber. It's like, I've never liked that in the movie, because like, how did that happen? It's not clear that he's even struggling, really. He's just suddenly down. Like, oops, I tripped. Let me grab that. I never liked that in the movie. But in this, it is, no, it's describing, no. Luke is overwhelming him, and he actually does lose his footing and fall to his knees because he's being overwhelmed. And then he does the whole trying to hold up to block, and Luke just cuts off the hand. And again, we have Luke here actually being tempted. That, he is right there. He can attack and he can kill this evil that is Vader. He can destroy it right now. He has the lightsaber at his throat. And then he got the Emperor going, good, kill him and assume your right place. It's like, dude, if you kept your damn mouth shut, he would have. But it snaps him back. He sees how... Here, let me actually see if I can find it. I might not be able to. Okay, no, that's earlier. Okay, so this is actually just before. Luke stared at his father. So this is Vader's on the ground. The Emperor hasn't said anything yet. Luke stared at his father's twitching, severed mechanical hand, and then at his own black-gloved artificial part, and realized suddenly just how much he'd become like his father, like the man he hated. Trembling, he stood above Vader, the point of his glowing blade at the Dark Lord's throat. He wanted to destroy this thing of darkness, this thing that was once his father, this thing that was him. So it is still, he is tempted right here, but then you've got in the whole... Good, kill him. Your hate has made you powerful. Now fulfill your destiny and take your father's place at my side. But that is also when Luke realizes, staring at his father beneath, then at the Emperor, then back at Vader, this was darkness. And it was the darkness he hated, not his father, not even the Emperor, but the darkness in them and in himself. And it's like, this is a lot better than what I think again in the movie, because we are having the internal turmoil for Luke. But again, it is possible if the Emperor had kept his mouth shut, Luke actually would have killed Vader. Because by him talking, he's giving Luke a moment to pause and consider. And it is also, he's reminding Luke that he's there, and it's the darkness in them that Luke hates. So splitting his focus, giving him time to think. So it is just, I find it amusing that's how it works. And then he still does the whole, no, throws away the lightsaber, I'm a Jedi like my father before me. That whole thing. So it's that moment is like the movie, but being in his head makes the moment so much better. And I do think that a little bit before I started reading, it is a little bit more of the whole Luke hating Vader and truly wanting to kill him in order to protect Leia, which at this point is what his weakness is, what his primary temptation is. He wants to protect people. And so he feels that destroying these people will help him do that, even though it would have him fall. Road to hell paved with good intentions kind of thing. Just a couple more points left. One is when the Emperor starts doing what we call the Force Lightning attack. The way it's described, I could believe that's not necessarily what it should be called. Like in universe, it wouldn't necessarily be called that, but whatever. Certainly the name we know it all by. Like, I mean, to give you another example of that, the movie Alien, as I recall in Aliens, which, granted, I've only watched once, I don't care for it. I like Alien. I don't like Aliens as much. Everybody refers to the alien as a xenomorph, but Ripley in Aliens, when somebody says, is it a xenomorph that you're talking about here? She's like, no, it's something else. But everyone still calls them xenomorphs, so we just ignore what stories actually tell us things are called anyhow. There isn't a name given for Force Lightning in the book. It's just how it's described feels more primordial to me than lightning. Like, you shouldn't call it lightning there, because it's like, no, it may appear like lightning. It does describe it as like a sorcerer throwing lightning. But that gives it the context of a sorcerer, not a Force user. So it's, even though, yes, the Force is just magic in the science fantasy realm instead of a more traditional fantasy realm. Anyhow, Luke actually, despite the pain, realizes something. Whatever the Emperor is doing here, and despite the pain, whatever the Emperor is doing here, it must be the Force. If he can attack me with the Force, then I can defend myself from the Force. And so he does actually deflect some, but the Emperor is basically continuously pulsing this, and that ultimately overwhelms Luke, and he's getting hit harder. One thing that's also curious is Luke reflects on that he's never even heard of this being possible with the Force. This corrupted use of the Force as well. He recognizes this as being completely out of nowhere. But it's like, I've never even heard of this. And I'm just like, dude, you've had like only 2 weeks of actual training from Kenobi and Yoda combined? What are you talking about? They were actual Jedi Masters. They wouldn't have spent the time in those 2 weeks they had with you. And it was less than that. He may have had a week with Yoda for training. Maybe. More likely just some days. Kenobi, he had like 2 days. And he's like, I don't recognize the Force ability. That's so confusing. I didn't think this was possible. It's like, dude, did you read a dictionary of every Force ability? Is there a Force encyclopedia out there that you read and has never been mentioned before? And that the Emperor apparently didn't ensure was destroyed. So when you think about it, it's the kind of thing he would destroy. I mean, it's like, if he wants to prevent people from believing in the Jedi and potentially becoming new ones, you destroy the literature concerning the education of Jedi. Just, that is exactly what you would do. So it's, I'm sorry, it is just such a weird comment to make, because it's like, Luke wouldn't know. He has no reason to know. Last point I have is back to Endor, and not so much with the Ewoks, but with Chewie. So it does explain that basically Chewie does see the Ewoks as like long lost country cousins. He loves them. He loves the Ewoks, and the Ewoks love him too. So it's like, he's running around on Endor, and any time a stormtrooper is threatening an Ewok, he is grabbing and crushing that dude. And any time that a stormtrooper is getting near Chewie, the Ewoks are jumping in, because they are fully together in this. But it is kind of funny, because Chewie's getting so affected by the Ewoks and how they're fighting, he forgets he has his own laser weapon with him. So he's been going around just clubbing people. He's going around swinging on the vines, having so much fun in this fight. And he swings with Ewoks holding on to him. And he's forgetting, oh yeah, I have a laser gun. I could be shooting these guys. It's just so funny to me. Because yes. Because Chewie is like a big Ewok. He's like a full-grown Ewok kind of thing. That's how I always kind of thought before I was really able to understand the movies better, in more detail, because I was a little kid seeing them. That's what the Ewoks and Chewie were. It's like, nah, they're just little kids compared to him. And it's like that's exactly kind of how they're describing here as well. That they work so well together that he starts thinking more like them instead of remembering, oh yeah, I have a blaster. And it's also a little funny. So they land on the ATST, and at first, it's not that they're banging on there to get somebody out. No, it's the Ewoks are banging on there because they're actually trying to hold on. And the stormtrooper inside is like, what the hell is that? Opens it up, and that's when Chewie grabs him and just throws him out. And then the Ewoks immediately jump in and grab the other guy. But then it does have, and I like how it's described here, that because now the Ewoks are piloting, and yeah, they pilot the ATSTs like they pilot speeder bikes. Enthusiastically, but very badly. So Chewie's like, oh, hang on, get down in here. Gets them out of the pilot seat. He's in there, and it's like, it takes him half a minute because all Imperial controls are standardized. Which makes perfect sense. So it's like, yeah, I know what we're doing. And he just goes around and then starts blowing away the other walkers because they have no idea what's going on, that there's one that's been captured. And Ewoks are just following after him. They're so happy. Oh, another thing I wanted to add about the ferocity of the Ewoks is they are using vines to hobble the ATSTs. So that would be in just getting a rope around, exactly what happened to the AT-ATs on Hoth. But they're doing with vines and ATSTs instead. But also, and this is neat, and is part of that whole ferocity thing, that even though they really shouldn't have a good understanding of how an ATST works, they are still so ferocious in their attack. They're still so aggressive that they're climbing up on the things, getting at the joints, and shoving rocks and dirt in. They have enough recognition and just are so... I keep using the word, but it's so accurate. They are attacking the joints, jamming things in there to make it harder to turn. They might not fully understand how the system works, but they recognize the value there and are doing this because it makes some sense. And yes, it is causing some damage. So yeah, it's... I really, really like Chapter 8. Are there some ways it could be better? A couple. But it is... like, that's on level of word choice kind of things that could be better. It is definitely very good. I'm very happy with it. I'm looking forward to the final chapter, Chapter 9. And also, I'm in a way not looking forward to watching the movie, because I do think that this chapter is so much better than what they show in the movie. I really do. And even just the Luke Vader confrontation. And I don't mean the whole being able to be in the head. I mean just how the fight is actually going, how they're trading blows. The whole Luke tossing his lightsaber to Vader and then taking it back, igniting it midway. It's like, I mean, I get the whole, igniting the lightsaber, Vader has to turn to him and, charging him. I get that. But it really helps show Luke being in turmoil and being tempted and falling to the temptation. That he gave up the weapon and now is having to take it back like that. I mean, it's that really is a more powerful image. Yeah. So, looking forward to this final chapter. See you then.